hallelujah, 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 kol hanshama, hallelujah, beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel vechino, hallelujah, betok umachot, hallelujah, beminim ve'ugar. Hallelujah, 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 kol hanshama, hallelujah, 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 kol hanshama, hallelujah, betzilzalei shama, hallelujah, betzilzalei trua, hallelujah, betzilzalei shama, hallelujah, betzilzalei trua, kol hanshama tehalelia, kol hanshama, kol hanshama tehalelia, kol hanshama, tehalelia, hallelujah, kol hanshama, tehalelia, hallelujah, kol hanshama, hallelujah, 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 kol hanshama, hallelujah, hallelujah, kol hanshama, hallelujah, kol hanshama,
One weekday morning, Reb Nachman of Wroclaw was looking out his window when he noticed his disciple Chaim rushing along the street. Reb Nachman opened the window and invited Chaim to come inside. And when Chaim entered the house, Nachman said to him, "Chaim, have you seen the sky this morning?" "No, Rebbe," responded Chaim. "Well, have you seen the street this morning?" "Yes, Rebbe." "Tell me, Chaim, what did you see in the street?" "I saw people and carts and merchandise. I saw merchants and peasants all coming and going, selling and buying." "Chaim," interrupted Reb Nachman, "in 50 years, in 100 years, on that very street, there will still be a market. Other vehicles will then bring merchandise and merchants to the street, but I won't be here anymore, and probably neither will you. So I ask you, Chaim, what is the use of all your rushing around if you don't even pause and take time to look up at the sky?" Shabbat is our time to take time out, to take it all in from a new perspective. And so this Shabbos morning, I invite you to put away all your cares of the outside world, if only for an hour plus. Turn off your cell phones, or at least put them on silent, so that you can be focused in as our Bar Mitzvah, Gavi, teaches us his Torah truth, leads us in worship. Let us all be present to not necessarily look up at the sky, though I invite you to do that when you leave our beautiful sanctuary, but to move ourselves away from our normal rush and focus in on blessing and song and spirit. When we've taken our time out, we'll be that much more rejuvenated, fully present, ready to keep perspective on the week ahead. And so we begin on page 78 in our Sidurim. If you're with us on live stream, right below there is a tab to access that as we praise God for the gift of body and soul. Elohai neshama shanatata bi Jehorahi, my God, the soul you have given me is pure. We continue on page 83 as we set our intentions for the Shabbos morning for the week ahead. We read responsively. As I awaken, let this be my thought. May my day be filled with acts of loving kindness. Let me be drawn to learning and discernment, and may my actions be shaped by mitzvot.
Keep me from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May I not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair.
Distance me from evil people and false friends. Let me cultivate a life of goodness.
May my hands reach out in kindness, and I will serve God through acts of righteousness.
Today and every day, may I merit your mercy by living my life with compassion and love.
Holy One of blessing, draw me to your word. Teach me the art of sacred living.
Baruch ata Adonai, hamelamed chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. We turn now to page 106 as we rise for Chatzi Kaddish and remain standing through the Shema.
Yitkado, Yitkado, Shemei Rabba, Amen. Be'alma divrach rite, ve'amnich malchute, v'chayachon v'yamechon v'chayecho beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zaman kariv, v'meru, ויתאמר ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשה בריחו. אלא מן כל ברכתה ושעתה, ושפחתה ונחמתה, תמירון בעלמה, וימרו
As we turn to page 108 for the Baruch Hu, it's my pleasure to call upon our bar mitzvah, Gabrielle Flores Chasnoff, to lead us in the next portion of our worship service.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Continue on page 100. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvarei choshech, Oser shalom uvarei et hakol, Hameir la'aretz vadarim aleha rachamim, Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, Maseh v'reish. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, Ulam b'chochma asita, Mal'a ha'aretz kinyanecha, Yitbarach Adonai Eloheinu, Al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, Ve'al me'orei or she'asita, Yefa'arucha sela, Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, V'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'oro, Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer hame'orot. Continue middle of page 113. Love your neighbor as yourself. Light blinded we saw, that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke, we wrote. We reached for you down the center, your light moving before us. As we climbed, fell back, climbed again. Your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahav. Continue on page. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. Continue together on page 106. Ve'afta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levacha uv'chol nafshecha, v'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanechecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'kechecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, shochbecha uvnecha, shartam leot ayedecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinech, uchtavtam, המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את חי, הם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Continue on top. Amen. There is no place or not. Even in the wilderness, there is your word. Amen. That 10 strokes of light, white fire, black, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True, enduring, your truth for us is certain, established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, all Israel, sing out.
Kadosh Israel, Baruch atah Adonai, Israel.
Continue with the Amidah, page 100. Please rise. Adonai sefai taitivtach ufia gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Anora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Mevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKoat HaRav Le'oshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkei Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melach melech memid umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'emanata lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol. Kadesh et Shimcha ba'olam. Hashem Shem Makdishimo Tobish Memoro Kakatuv al Yad Neviecha. Vekara Ze'el Zeve'amar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tsevaot, Melochol Haaretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir, Shimcha, Bechol Haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo, Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu Vehu Yashmienu, Borachamav Le'enei Kol Chai, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Imloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Yichzion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid God lecha, ulenetzach netzachim kedushatcha nagdish, veshivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, Leolam Va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. Continue in the middle of page 137. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw near to life to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our worth in our study of. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess. and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw near life. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you, praise you, for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, for your wondrous and favor every time of day, evening, morning. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate, whose kindness never fails, forever put our hope. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name forever be praised. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness. You are worthy of it. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'el lehodot.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tov v'racha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tov v'racha. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tov v'racha.
Together, grant peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and to all your people Israel. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together, through the light of your presence. Truly, through the light of your presence, Adonai, our God, gave us a Torah of life, the love of kindness, justice, and blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May you see fit to bless your people Israel at all times, at every hour, with your peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with Baruch atah Adonai, hamavarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
At this moment of joy, we also stop to think about those who are in need of healing of mind, body, and of spirit. We think of them and whisper their names aloud now. Our prayer for healing, Mishaberach, can be found on page 250.
May the source of strength, oh bless the ones before us, help us find the moment now for silent prayer.
Ose shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakov Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'yakov Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'achov Yisrael.
Seder Kriyat Torah, service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. As we prepare to open the ark and take out our sacred scrolls, I call upon the generations of Gavi's family to stand here with him in a chain of tradition, along with his stepmother Leslie and father Brian Chasnoff. I call upon his grandparents Barry and Sally Chasnoff, and to open the ark, his aunt Sarah and his cousin Noah. And I'd ask everyone else to please rise.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'en kema'asecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, olamim mashaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai melech, Adonai melech le'olam va'ed. Adonai os le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech t'amo v'shalom.
Torah tzivalanu Moshe Morashat Kihilat Yaakov. This is the Torah given by God to Moses, a gift to the congregation of Israel. Gabriel. At Mount Sinai, God gave the gift of Torah to Moses, who shared it with the people of Israel. Moses passed Torah down to Joshua. Joshua passed Torah down to the elders. The elders passed Torah down to the prophets, who spent their lives calling out its message of equality and social justice and good for all. The prophets passed Torah down to the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the men of the Great Assembly, who passed Torah down to the rabbis. The rabbis spent their lives too stepping into those ancient teachings, yes, to call out those goals of justice and goodness for all, but also to find modern meaning in their own day in those ancient words. And it is that ability to find new in the old that enables us to stand here today with the generations of your family, so proud and privileged to pass Torah down to you. And just as God gave that gift of Torah to the people of Israel as a gift of love, it is without a doubt that the generations of your family too pass this down to you, with the hope that someday you too will stand in front of a grateful congregation, maybe this one, maybe wearing that beautiful talit that your Papa C wore at his bar mitzvah given to him by his grandmother. Maybe your child will wear that talit too, knowing that Torah goes midor lador, from generation to generation.
In this scroll, the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. It's teaching, love, and justice, goodness, and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai. L'dor vador, l'dor vador, l'dor vador nagid God lacha. L'dor vador, l'dor vador, l'dor vador nagid God lacha. Ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatecha nakdish, kedushatecha nakdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam leolam va'ed. L'dor vador, l'dor vador, l'dor vador nagid God lacha. L'dor vador, l'dor vador, l'dor vador nagid God lacha. Ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatecha nakdish, kedushatecha nakdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam leolam va'ed. You may be seated. This week we read from Parshat Shalach Lecha, meaning you shall send, which is referring to the 12 spies, one from each tribe, that Moses sent to scout the land of Canaan. These spies were directed to find out if the land was good and if the people could be conquered. And when they returned, Caleb and Joshua had a very different story than the other 10 spies. Gabriel will read this section and later will share some of his insights with us. He's going to be reading from Numbers chapter 13, verse 31 through chapter 14, verse 21. Anyway, it's my pleasure to invite Gabrielle forward and also to invite, for the honor of the first Aliyah, Gabrielle's great uncle, Ira Chasnoff.
ברכו את אדוני המברך, Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'ha'anashim asher alu imo amru lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am ki hazak umimen. Vayotziu dibat ha'aretz asher taru ota el b'nei Yisrael. Lemor ha'aretz asher avarnu va'lator otav. Eretz ochelet yoshveha. Ki v'chol ha'am asher ra'inu v'tocha anshe midot. V'sham ra'inu et hanephilim b'nei anak hanephilim. B'nei be'einenu kacha gavim. V'chen ha'inu be'einenu. But the notables who had gone up with him, we cannot attack that, for it is stronger than we. Thus they spread calumnies among the about the land they had scouted, saying, the country that we traversed and scouted is one that devours settlers. All the people that we saw in it are of great size. We say the Nephilim there, Anakites, are part of the Nephilim, and we look like grasshoppers to ourselves, so we must look at them.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet, v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
For the honor of the second Aliyah, it's a pleasure to invite Gabriel's uncle, Ari Kane.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vatisa kol ha'eda va'itnu et olam va'ivku ha'am b'layla hahu va'ilonu al Moshe ve'al Aharon kol b'nei Yisrael va'yomru alehem kol ha'eda lu matznu be'eretz Mitzrayim o b'midbar hazeh lu matznu v'lama Adonai mevi otanu el ha'aretz azot ko b'charev yoshenu v'tapenu yiheu lavaz Hello, Tuv Lanu Shuv Mitzrayma, Vayomru Ish El Achiv, Na Rosh Shuva, Mitzrayma. The whole community broke loud. The people wept. All the Israelites railed against Moses. If only we had died in the land of the whole shouted. Or if only we might die in this wilderness. Why is it taking us to that land, followed by sword? Our wives and children will be carried off. It would be better for us to go back to. They said to one another, let us head back.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
And it's a pleasure to invite Gabriel's grandparents, Sally and Barry Chasnoff, for the third Aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher ba'anu b'kol ha'amim, ויפול משה ואהרון על פניהם פני כל קהל עדת בני ישראל. ויהושע בן נון וכלב בן יפונה מן התרים את הארץ קרעו בגדיהם, ויאמרו אל כל עדת בני ישראל, לאמור הארץ אשר עברנו ולתור אותה טובה הארץ מאוד מאוד. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembled congregation of Israel. And Joshua, son of Nun, Caleb, son of Jephunneh, of those who had scouted the land, rent their clothes and exhorted the whole Israelite. The land that we traversed, scouted, is an exceedingly good land.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech asher natan lanu Torah lanu lam Beitokenu Baruch Adonai.
For the fourth Aliyah, I'd like to invite Gabriel's brother, Octavio Flores Chasnoff.
Baruch et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch et Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Elohim melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notnei.
Amen. Im chafetz banu Adonai v'hevib otanu el haaretz hazot untana banu eretz asher hi zavat kalav vashach Adonai al timrodu ve'atem al tira'u et am haaretz lachmenu hem sart silam me'alehem Adonai otanu al tira'um vayomru kol ha'eda irgom otam ba'avanim uchvod Adonai nira be'ohel moed el kol b'nei Yisrael. If pleased with us, the Eternal will bring us into that land, a land that flows with milk and honey. Give it. Only you must not rebel against the Eternal. Have no fear, then, of the country, for they are our prey. Their protection has departed from us, but the Eternal is with us. Have no fear of them. As the whole community threatened to pelt them with stones, the presence of the Eternal appeared, and all the
Atah Adonai asher natan lanu Torah v'chayei olam sabeh. Adonai
And for the honor of the fifth Aliyah, it's a pleasure to invite Gabriel's father and stepmother, Brian and Leslie Chasnoff.
Baruch et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomru Adonai el Moshe ad ana yena'atsuni ha'am hazeh ve'ad ana lo ya'aminu becho ha'otot asher atik bekirbo akenu vadever ve'orishinu ve'e'eseh otcha legoy gadol vayotsum mimenu vayomru Moshe el Adonai ve'sham'u Yisraima כי העלית בכוחך את העם הזה מקרבו, ויאמרו אל יושב הארץ הזאת שמעו כי אתה אדוני בקרב העם הזה אשר עין בעיני. נראה אתה אדוני ועננך עומד עליהם בעמוד ענן אתה הולך לפניהם יומם בעמוד אש לילה. And the Eternal One said to Moses, how long will this people spurn me? And how long will they have faith despite all the signs that I have performed? I will strike them with a pestilence, disown them, and I will make of them a nation far more numerous than they. But Moses said, when the Egyptians from whose midst brought up might hear the news, they will tell it happened that now they have heard that you are in the midst, that you, Eternal One, here in plain sight, cloud rests over them, for them a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tzidkenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
The final aliyah we reserve for our bar mitzvah. Ya'amod Gabriel ben Baruch habachor habar mitzvah.
Baruch et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. V'hemata et ha'am hazeh ke'ish echad, ve'amru hagoyim asher sham'u et acha, lemor mibilt yecholet Adonai lehevi et ha'am hazeh el ha'aretz asher ba lahem vayishkatem, bamidbar ve'ata yigdal, na koach Adonai ke'isher dvarta lemor, Adonai erech apayim Barev chesed noseh avon vafasha venakeh lo yenakeh poked avon avot al banim al shilashim ve'al ribeim selach na la'avon ha'am hazeh tegodel chasdecha va'asher nasata la'am hazeh mitzrayim ve'ad hena vayomer Adonai selachti kidvarech ve'olam chai ani vayimale kavod Adonai et kol haaretz. If then you slay this people, every single person, the nations who have heard your fame will say, it must be because the Eternal was powerless to bring that people into the land. He had promised them on oath that God slaughtered them in the wilderness. Therefore, I pray, let my Lord's forbearance be great, as you have declared, saying, the Eternal, slow to anger and abounding in kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression, yet not remitting all people, but visiting the iniquity of fathers on children, on the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I pray, the iniquity of this people, according to the great you have forgiven ever. The Eternal One said, pardon have passed. Nevertheless, as I live, as the Eternal's presence fills the whole world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tokah. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
And I would like to invite Gabriel's brother, Octavio Flores Chasnoff, who's going to dress the Torah, and Brian will lift the Torah, and I invite you all to rise. וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, You may be seated.
The chapters and verses I read from the Torah this morning were from chapters 13 and 14 in the book of Numbers, Parshat Shalach Lecha. Once the Israelites came out of slavery, they walked through the desert to the promised land. In Shalach Lecha, they sent out the leaders of their tribe to assess it. These people were known as the 12 spies. When they came back, they carried with them a cluster of grapes so large it took 2 men to carry. They spoke of the rivers full of milk and honey, and fruits growing as far as the eye could see. But they also spoke of the inhabitants, giant warriors that made them look like grasshoppers in comparison. Even as God assured them that they could take the promise from them, fear got the best of them, as they did not dare attack. Only 2 of the spies believed they could fight. That wasn't enough to persuade the people to fight against fortified cities and giant warriors. Soon God was fed up, decided to make them wander for 40 years in the desert, so none of that generation would promise them. And instead, the next would fight and succeed, taking back Israel. The spies who went out to scout the land were all chiefs. They were supposed to be experienced, talented, wise, and loyal. When they came back and reported what they saw to the rest of their people, they let their insecurity get the best of them. They spread fear through the hearts of the people, making it seem absolutely impossible to fight, and even lost faith in God when God was saying that they could overcome obstacles. In Numbers 14, the scouts tell everyone, "The country that we traversed and scouted is one that devours its settlers. All the people that we saw in it are men of great size. We saw the Nephilim, Anakites are part of the Nephilim, and we looked like grasshoppers to ourselves, so must have looked to them." They had a right to be nervous and worried. They saw people who, to them, looked stronger and more powerful. They had experienced the horrible trauma of being slaves and just couldn't seem to overcome the fear of becoming slaves again that must have been present of their heart. Even so, God had freed them from slavery in Egypt, promised them victory. Why didn't they have faith in God's promise? Some Torah scholars see their insecurity as their greatest sin, but others see that their greatest sin was in assuming it was up to them alone to accomplish their task. Reb Menachem Mendel of Plotzk teaches, when you say you are like grasshoppers in your eyes, that is a reason to respond. But when you say you are like grasshoppers in their eyes too, what possible good could it do to try and imagine how you might appear someone else's eyes. Modern American Rabbi Lawrence Kushner explains what this rabbi meant. Menachem Mendel of Kotz teaches that the real sin of the spies was self-centered. When you are sent on a holy mission, don't worry about how you look. Instead, pay attention to what you are looking for. Life well. I like these two teachings because they show that spies were ultimately self-centered and concerned about themselves, took everyone else down with them. Instead of planning for victory, they were worried about. They put their own fear in other people's heads and convinced them too that victory was impossible. We can be angry with the spies, but we can also feel sorry for them. Maybe the spies didn't keep their faith in God because they weren't ready to be fully free. They were too insecure. They weren't defined yet as a people. They didn't have faith in each other or themselves, so they didn't have faith in God. There needed to be a new generation, born free from slavery and trauma, would enter into settle the promise. Even today, insecurity not only bring yourself down, but the people around you as well. Insecurity comes from focusing too much on what others think about us, instead of thinking about who we are, what we want. This can stop us from reaching our goals, just like how for the Israelites, it stopped them from their goals. I think Parshat Shalach Lecha reminds us how important it is to be careful about how we express our own insecurity, because they can affect other people around us more than we might think. If you stay confident in your ability and strive for success, then you can bring not only you, but the people around you forward. Having courage doesn't mean you aren't afraid, it just means you confront your fear, decide to move on anyway. The spies had a right to be afraid, but they allowed their fear to take hold of them, overwhelm them. Even worse, they spread their fear to the rest of the Israelites too. They should have focused on what they saw, the richness of the land, instead of how they saw themselves. Instead of focusing on the mission, they focused on their own insecurities, and they got overwhelmed by them. This turned into a disaster. I think that the spies, instead of thinking about themselves, allowing their own personal insecurity to make decisions for them, bring down the entirety of their people because of it. They should have acted as and strategically thought the best way to confront the situation, instead of speaking their mind to an extent that infected everyone else with their fear. Today, insecurity, past experience, may make obstacles down the road to success. In order to overcome these obstacles, you can't worry about what others think, and you need to try your best to bring yourself and the people around you down the road to success. Now it's time for me to thank some people who played an important role in helping me prepare for today. Thank you, Hagit, for helping me through my Torah portion prayers I was struggling on. Thank you, Rabbi Nathan, Rabbi Jurgen, for helping me with my Devar Torah Mitzvah project. Thank you to Cantor Berlin for helping me through the Haftorah blessing and its difficult math. Thank you to my dad, stepmom, and mom for keeping me on top of practicing and remembering when I had peace. Thank you to my grandparents for being so supportive and willing to sit down and check. Shabbat Shalom.
You're almost there. Okay. In Jewish tradition, we teach that the world stands on three pillars, the pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim, of study, worship, and acts of loving kindness. So Gabriel has already fulfilled two of those pillars this morning. He has led us beautifully in worship and also taught us Torah, And so now he focuses on that third pillar of Gimilut Chasadim. Our students at Temple Beth-El don't prepare a traditional haftarah. Instead, they pick a prophetic text, mostly from within our beautiful sanctuary, but really around the temple, teachings that are inspired by the prophets and their ideals of social justice, but also the core values of the founders of our congregation. So Gabi will share his traditional Haftarah blessings and then reveal his prophetic text and tell us how it is relevant to him and to all of us today.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar bin ve'im tovim ve'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah uveMoshe avdo uVyisrael amo min b'yei ha'emet v'tzedek. My prophetic text states that, quote, they shall never again know war. It's saying that two nations shall never fight, and the people in those nations shall never experience war, its effect it can have. The social justice point this prophetic text is making is that if everyone stops fighting, no more shall people, especially those in poverty or on the front lines, feel all the negative effects of war, and instead use weapons of war for peaceful and helpful causes. This connects to my many others' life because it tells us that violence to get out of an argument, work, or a feeling of jealousy isn't always a rational decision. We have all been in arguments before, but if you try to solve it with violence, it gets much worse, and neither parties will come to an understanding. The meaning I have found in this text is that God will solve disputes with the nation instead of going to war, and that in doing so, the people will never again know war, instead use weapons of destruction for the greater good. For my mitzvah project, I decided to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which is an organization that funds programs for people affected by research to cure cancer. I decorated hand-painted paper fans, set up a table at a charity garden party. Anyone who made a donation could use a fan to cool off with that. We raised over $200 just that one day. My mitzvah project connects to my prophetic text because there's a constant battle going on to help end cancer and stop the rising death. And my prophetic text focuses on the point of ending war and instead using objects of war to help better people's lives in a peaceful manner. Raising money and donating can help research to ultimately end the war against cancer once for all. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdeber u'mkayeh shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al hatorah ve'al havodal ve'al hanevi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל. אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך, מברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
wrote a little something for you. It won't be too embarrassing, I promise. Gabrielle, here at Temple, standing before our friends, family, and Jewish community, Leslie and I would like to tell you how incredibly proud we are of you and the young man you are becoming. You probably don't remember this, but a long time ago, way back when you had just learned to say a few words, I asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up. You didn't hesitate to answer. You pumped one fist in the air and said, "An awesome guy." Gabrielle, even though you're still growing up, you already are an awesome guy. No doubt about that. But here's the thing, you always have been. Even as a toddler, you had a strong sense of identity of who you are. As a result, empathy and compassion have always been at the core of your personality. When you see another creature in pain or needing help, or a wrong that needs to be put right, you immediately and selflessly want to help alleviate that suffering and injustice. You are a shining example of living out tikkun olam, working to repair the world around you through compassion and mitzvot. And that is also what makes you a leader. You are confident enough to care for others outside the frame of yourself. This is what true compassion requires. It reminds me of the 12 spies in your Torah portion. As you explained in your Devar Torah, these so-called leaders were unable to resist telling the other Israelites about the giant warriors they saw because they were simply unable to rise above their own insecurities. I bet that if you had been in their shoes, Gabrielle, you would have thought first about the impact of your words and had the empathy to separate your own fears from the needs of those around you.
As we celebrate this special moment in your life and look ahead to the man you are becoming, our blessing for you is one of compassion and leadership. We hope that you will continue to lead others by sharing your deep sense of connection to the world around you, teaching compassion and empathy, and the beautiful insights and observations that come to you innately. We hope that you will continue to carry out mitzvot and lead our family, your community, and a family of your own someday with the teachings and practices of Judaism and the Torah. Thank you for sharing your hard work and your unique perspectives with all of us today. You showed so much responsibility, as you always do, and worked so hard leading up to your time on the Bima this morning. We love you so very much. And thank you to Rabbi Nathan, Rabbi Jurgen, Cantor Berlin, Hagit, our family, friends, and our community here at Temple Beth-El for supporting Gabriel throughout his life and the many hours of preparation leading up to this special day. So with the blessing of all of our family as your gift, so may Adonai bless you as well. Amen.
At this poignant moment of blessing, we make ready to return Torah to the Ark. We turn to page, hold on. Oh yeah, page 256. I'd ask you all to please rise.
It's Chaim hi, Lama chazikim ba, v'toncheha me'ushar, terocheha tachenom, v'chon etivoteh shalom, hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, chadesh yameinu kekedem.
You may be seated. Except for you, Gabrielle. Come here. How you doing?
Tired?
You're tired. Okay.
feel
You're good. You're tired. It takes a lot of energy. I know. Trust me, I know. It's a lot of work to lead a service, right? I hope in addition to being tired and good, you also feel accomplished. Because I think, not that it's any surprise to anyone here that you did a beautiful job, but it was really quite wonderful to see you standing up here, going slow and really sharing your insights, but also your abilities as a leader of worship at Temple Beth-El. So mazel tov for that. You have a great Torah portion. And unlike most of our students, because Rabbi Jurgen was on maternity leave at the time, you and I really got to work on and study your Torah portion together in a way that I don't always have the opportunity to do with other students. And so because of that, you picked some of my favorite commentaries that have to do with your Torah portion, right? You kind of zeroed in on the operative question of our parsha, which was, were the spies at fault, right? And if they were, how come? Were they kind of set up for disaster because of all the things you explained? They really still had that slave mentality, right? Or were they really at fault for how they handled the situation, right? Which is why the commentaries that we picked together, I think, are so powerful because they don't speak just to that moment in Torah, but they speak to who we are today, right? Which is, it's not that they were wrong to be scared or worried, right, or thinking that it wasn't going to work out, but that instead of having faith in what could be, all they could focus on was themselves, right? Instead of being brave, instead of knowing that they were going to figure it out and work it out, they just got overcome with all the things that they told themselves about themselves that weren't the best. And that happens to all of us, right? But when we recognize it, we can get hopefully past ourselves and move forward. Your dad stole my thunder a little bit, but I'm going to go for this anyway. It was a beautiful blessing, both of you, by the way. But because if I think you had been there as one of the spies, you would have been Caleb, right? You would have been that guy who said, he didn't say, no, there's nothing to worry about, right? He didn't say, we're superhuman, we got this. Instead, he said, we can do this, right? We have faith in God. We have faith in each other. We have the capacity to move past the challenges that are in front of us, and we're going to figure it out. And I think that's part of who you are. You have a sweetness and a goodness and empathy, as your dad and Leslie said, that makes you really special. And you have this ability to know that, yes, I've got talents and I've got skills, but I also know I'm going to have to work hard. I might have to overcome some challenges to work it out. And you do, right? So seeing you here last night, this morning, wearing your beautiful bar mitzvah suit, really owning the moment and leading us, right? Not just in worship, but leading us as an example of what a really wonderful young person can be in our community is really inspiring. And just like those Israelites, right, they did have to wander for 40 years. And like you said, none of them got to go into the promised land except for Caleb and Joshua, right? They were able to show through their actions and their courage that they could get through the challenges that they experienced and really surpass them and move on. And you get to do that too. Show us that you overcame an amazing challenge, which is to become bar mitzvah. I do think it's a little cruel that we take 13-year-olds and make them not only learn all this stuff, but get in front of a whole community at that moment of, burgeoning adolescence, and yet they do an amazing job. You did an amazing job. You proved not only to us, but I hope to yourself that whatever you want to accomplish in this world, you got it. We're so proud. So at this moment of blessing, I'm going to invite you to come up with Leslie and your dad, along with Cantor Berlin and Rabbi Jurgen, as we share in Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. And I'd ask everyone else to please rise.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha vichuneka.
May God deal kindly with you and be gracious unto you.
Yisarunai panavilecha, v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God's radiant presence shine upon you and within you. And Gabriel grant you life's choicest blessings of health, wholeness, happiness, lots of family love. And
You may be seated. Okay, so was it the fastest B'nai Mitzvah you've ever been to? It was. See, I told you. I knew it would. All right, so I get the honor of giving you a couple of different things. One is this certificate to make sure you remember that it happened, because it does seem like it goes by in an instant. You have this, and it says it happened today, and it has our signatures, so you know it's real. And then we also give you from North American Federation of Temple Youth a gift certificate to help get you on a trip to Israel. And when you go through confirmation here at Temple Beth-El, we'll match that to help get you on that trip. From Sisterhood, we give you this Tanakh, which has your name on it. You can continue your studies throughout your life. From Brotherhood, we give you this Kiddush cup and candlestick, so that you can continue these practices in your own home for yourself. I know that you all participated even on Zoom and got to be there and light candles for even on Zoom during this past year, but this allows you to light your own candlestick, drink from your own Kiddush cup. From Yachad, our religious school parents group, we give you this tzedakah box, and as you said, this is going to be a long fight to get rid of cancer, so I know that you will put this tzedakah box to good use to help on that. I am so proud of you and excited that I could be here with you today, even though I couldn't be with you for the prep. So I'm glad that I could be here with you today. Continue now with the concluding portion of our worship. Aleinu is on page 283, and I invite you all to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת קדילה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Our memorial meditation can be found on page 189. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide. By God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Our thoughts turn now to those in our community who have died at this time in years past. As we mark their yard sites, we remember them. Marcos Aronson, Marjorie Balbert, Helen Bennett, Rose Bennett, Joseph Bergavoy, Philip Bookman, Carrie Pfeiffer Brown, Luz O. Ben Rostro, James Dick, Rabbi Richard E. Dreyer, Julius Dubb, Freddie Mae Duchin, Wilma Fisher, Henry Fischel, Howard Frieden, Jack Glickenhaus, Mo Goldman, Shirley Landsman Goldsmith, Sharon Gonzalez, Lionel Goodstein, Dr. Sheldon P. Gorin, Rebecca Greenbloom, Ruth Jean Gerwitz, Joseph Hardy, Arthur Harris, Eskar Hockman, Francis Levy Kahn, Jacob Carfield, Theodore King, Bill Collett, Sylvia Crandall, Doris Kraus, Louise Lane, Gertrude Levinson, Harry H. B. III, Shirley Mako, Les Mendelson, Simon Mexick, Wallace Newell, Herbert Oppenheimer, Harry Percy, Luis Gervitz Phillip, Ruth Pollock, Kaya Rabinovich, Alan Bruce Ramiel, Ruth Rankin, Ruth Rose, Maurice Charlack, Dolores Sigel, Clarice Sterling, Anne Shaw, Julius Steinhardt, Sylvan Ungerlater, Amnon Weidenfeld, Ashley Weiss, Joseph Weiss, Cornelia Weiss, Gerda Yaffe, and Jack Zimmerman. We also think of those who've died in the past month. Families are in a mourning period of Shloshim. Remember Sabra Landy and Stanley David Rosenberg. We also think of one who's died this past week. Family is in a mourning period of Shiva. Remember Leslie Sarah Kittler, cousin of Alex Golden. At this sacred hour, Gabi's family particularly remembers Daniel Chasnoff, Rosalie Chasnoff, Jesse Paul Wheeler, and Janet Wheeler. To all of these names, we add those which are in our hearts each and every day as we turn to page 294 for Kaddish Yatom and rise together as one community. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'vizman kariv imru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu, La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, v'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, which we say, amen.
Our closing song is Ein Keloheinu on page 322, and I'd like to call Tavi up here to join his family to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi.
Ein Keloheinu, ein Karoneinu, ein Kemokeinu, ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemokeinu, Michemoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Elokeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu.
Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yavarech et amo v'shalom. O God, give strength to your people Israel, to all the world, and grant us peace. Amen. Amen. Shabbat shalom.